I said there are still seats available here, so come in. We're ready to start. Welcome to this session. My name is Albert Kooijman, and I'm here with a fellow Dutch-speaking person. Well, not really.
Not a word.
Not a word. I am working in the marketing team on meetings, and especially on the meeting strategy, or what we call the high-value scenarios and the meeting devices. And I'm here with Anton.
Hi, Anton Krantz. I'm on the engineering team for link room systems, now Skype room systems, and we'll talk quite a bit about that today.
What I wanted to do is not necessarily only talk about the devices per se. There will be a large portion of this presentation about the devices, but I would love to actually give you a little bit more insight in where we are coming from and what is the strategy behind this and why all of a sudden we actually have stepped up so much in trying to build better devices across all those different spaces. And in a nutshell, our strategy is actually summed up by there is an incredible amount of meeting spaces out there. Formal meeting spaces, there's over 50 million of them. And if we truly want to become successful as Skype or Skype for Business, we actually would like to bring our technology and all the benefits that it has in productivity for you guys and for your employees, bring that to those rooms, bring that to those spaces. And of course, we cannot do that all by ourselves. So the second pillar of our strategy is that we need to do this with our partners. And that a lot of partners are building a lot of devices for this particular opportunity. And the last part is we are doing this not just by saying, hey, partners, you need to build something. We actually are showing the way. And that is what my first section is about in this presentation. What does that mean that we as Skype, we truly want to show the way? As such, you need to understand a little bit more about what we are trying to do. We have, in the last year, created a group across Microsoft that is not only consisting of the teams like Skype or the teams like what you now know as Service or Service Hub, but it's essentially also including the operating system, is including Office, is including effectively every division, every group, every team in Microsoft that has something to do with meetings. Because I think that we actually are in a unique position. We are in a unique position that when we are looking at meetings and meeting devices, that we as Microsoft do not only actually have the ability to contribute to building better devices with our partners and by ourselves, but we actually as Skype have an ability to do that also in the service and in the software and by supporting all kinds of scenarios. Let me talk a little bit more about that. Yesterday, it was yesterday, when Gurdeep was speaking, he was calling out how critical it is for us to actually get that extra dimension over the wire to the other side of the participants in those meetings. That essentially is that dimension of video. He called out how much of a percentage is actually made up by actually the body language that you would like to see. And if you are looking at specifically the video aspect of it, we know that we have not nailed it. What we are doing at this very moment very often is recreating the sit-down, face-to-face type of experience. But we don't make it too interactive. We actually do not actually make it in the sense that you are seeing what is relevant in the meeting room. We actually did some analysis in our design team. And in that design team, they came to the conclusion that if you are in a meeting, you're getting bored looking at video extremely quickly. However, if you are watching television and you're looking at a meeting on television, you don't get bored. So what is actually the difference between building video solutions as we are doing at this very moment and what is happening on television or what is happening in a movie? It is that you constantly in a movie or on television see people change the perspective. The camera switches from one speaker to the other speaker. It's actually there where the action is. So when I speak about, okay, hey, we as Skype, we actually have started this initiative across groups in Microsoft, the one Microsoft Credo at work, then we are actually looking at how can we actually make that type of experience that is so natural in one medium, namely the movies and on television, how can we actually bring that also to, for example, the meeting technology that we have? So as such, we believe that we have a lot of stuff that we can actually contribute. And it is very, very important that we actually realize that we actually not only own the technology in Skype, but that we actually can bring that technology in a better way to the devices, to the services, and we actually can build better experiences. Let me actually go a little bit more in detail to that. If you're talking about what we are doing since the last year with incredible activity, is we are essentially doing 5 things. We're making sure that we hit the basics, that we do the basic things well, that we innovate with our technology, like you saw yesterday Harry Shum present in the research, that we actually make sure that everyone has the, let's say, experience that they, in their software, can start meetings right away, that we give them all the right tools, and that we actually make it possible for everyone to participate in meetings. Let me actually go a little bit more in detail. When I speak about hitting the basics, the one thing that is consistent across all the devices that we have, and Anton will come back later in the presentation to that, is that one-touch join. If you are in a link room system, as it used to be called, we still have to figure out what is the name going forward, but it's in that broader category of Skype room systems. If you are in the traditional link room system, it is possible to touch the screen at the front of the room and start a meeting. If you're on your mobile phone, when you are using the Skype client, you can actually one-click join the Skype for Business client. If you are able to do this on your laptop, you can actually one-click join in the Skype for Business client. That experience is across all the devices, so we start meetings instantly. The traditional 8 to 12 minutes before you actually start a meeting, that is actually what we are trying to overcome. And we do that by actually making it very, very easy, by that one-click join. We make sure that the experience is across all the applications that we build for all the different operating systems, for all the different devices, is very consistent. The slogan that Anton will repeat later in a moment as well is that when you know Link, you would have known a Link room system because the UX is very, very aligned. If you know the desktop client, you will actually know what is going on the mobile client. And of course, yes, we have work to do there because actually supporting all those operating systems, all those different form factors, there is always a little bit of a lack of one client versus the other. But the basic principles on how you actually participate in the meeting, what you can do in the meeting, it is our ambition to bring that across all those devices. And then, of course, we are very, very strongly focused on the reliability. 5.9 reliability is not very common, but that is what our absolute ambition is. And we are getting there better and better. We are getting better and better at it. And you will actually notice all those improvements if you looked at the performance over the last year. And then last of all, we are looking at how we actually can bring more experiences to more different rooms. One of the things that is very interesting in that context is that actually the meeting rooms are changing. I do not know what it's like with you, but in Microsoft, a year ago, they took away my office. They actually changed everything into open spaces. Actually, more and more walls of all the meeting rooms got broken down, and there are a lot of huddle spaces. There's about 35 million open spaces out there that are effectively places where people gather and people meet, and they actually have meetings not only with people in the building, but also with people outside. It is a gigantic opportunity, but does the traditional sit-down paradigm that we know from a traditional VTC work there or not? Do we actually want to include and make it more interactive that people on both sides of the meeting, either in-house or those who are remote, can participate? Can we actually not include more screens than the ones that are available traditionally, namely one screen at the top? Why can't there be more screens at all the walls? And why can't people actually, all the walls, be actually participating? Coming back to that paradigm around the movie that I explained, why is it not possible that the camera just switches with those? And without giving up any secrets, because you saw that actually at work when Julia White was doing her demo of the Service Hub, the moment that she stepped to the left, the camera from the right was following her. When she stepped to the right, the camera from the left was following her. That is in one device. But what if you can make that work together across all the devices that are in the meeting room? Hitting the basics. The other thing that we are working on very hard is actually bring those natural user interfaces to our technology. Yesterday you saw in Harry Shum's presentation, a presentation where he was actually outlining what they are doing around vision. And it looked very futuristic in the sense that you could see a dog and it could recognize this is a dog, this is grass, etc. What many people do not realize is that this technology is actually being converted into our technology at this very moment. Because if you are in an open space office like myself, you do not want at that very moment to actually see all the people around me. You want in the meeting just to focus on me, because I'm participating in that meeting. So in this particular case, I'm the dog, and all the other people are cars that are passing by in that vision video that you saw yesterday of what Harry was doing and the R&D people were doing. But now imagine I am the person who is actually in focus, and the rest is blurred out. That's what you actually see on this particular picture. The person is in focus, and that new user interface technology that R&D is developing actually then contributes to something valuable in the meetings themselves. The next innovation that actually was very apparent yesterday when we were showing the Service Hub is how far we can actually take whiteboarding. And not only whiteboarding with 1 or 2 or 3 or people in the room, but also be able to actually enjoy that in the remote client, the people who are participating from the other side. Whiteboarding is something that is already built into the Link client. But to actually bring the technology to the table that effectively is based on the experience that you know in OneNote, that is something that you can actually see that happening over the coming time. And last part, what if you can actually become more smart? Already now, if you are looking at the demo yesterday about Delve, where you can see what other people are working on, why is it not possible, and actually you will see that on the Service Hub, why is it not possible that the meeting content is already preloaded? Because that is the meeting that you're joining. We have that knowledge. We are able to do those type of things. Those are technical bets that we are doing, and those are the innovations that we are driving that you can see in the foreseeable future. But then, of course, that is all worthless if no one is using it. So we actually need to get mind share. We need to actually have people turn on video. If we could have turned off the audio, I would have said how low actually the participation with video in meetings is. It's in the single-digit percentages. So if you have a Link meeting, if you have a Skype for Business meeting, not many people turn on video. There is, however, also encouraging news. Inside Microsoft, over 40% of all the online meetings actually present content to remote participants or to people in the room. So in other words, whenever it is actually bringing extra relevance, we see that technology is being used. It is not that people do not know how to turn on or off things, but it is about, okay, what does it actually bring to those people to actually use those features? When you're talking about mindshare, we actually would like to inspire people to start using our technology. The greatest examples that we have of that we were shown actually at this very moment and also at Build is not only the Service Hub, but is also, for example, Skype as an application in HoloLens. Being able to truly be at the meeting without being there. Those are things that are speaking to the imagination, and people think that it is not only something that can actually be, let's say, useful, but it actually is inspiring. It is something that convinces people to use our technology. Then, of course, you would like to not only power the experience by itself, you also would like to empower the experience in all kinds of useful applications. I'm not sure whether, is there anyone here from Gartner, but actually there was also a Wainhouse report. Let me talk about the Wainhouse report. They actually predicted that most of the meeting solutions that are going to be developed as vertical solutions. So whether this is, for example, a telemedicine application, or whether this is an application in the, let's say, manufacturing, where you can see, for example, that's one of the demos that we have of HoloLens as well, where people are designing together. You need to have technology that actually powers those experiences. So under the hood, you need to not only have the device by itself, you do not only need to have the client by itself, but you actually need to make that client more powerful. And that's actually what we are doing with the technology that we have in the meeting graph, or as we call it, the Microsoft graph, and the meeting object in there. We're working very hard not only to make it possible that you already see the documents that you're going to present in that meeting that you have been preparing, but also that afterwards you have content that you actually can do, like a link recording is already there. Why don't we make that link recording available to everyone by default? And why don't we integrate that into SharePoint? SharePoint has now a wonderful video product, a video storage product. That is where the meeting content should go. And once you have the content there, you actually can know what is inside that content. Those are things that actually contribute to not only making better meetings, but also actually making this experience before a meeting and after a meeting more useful. To come back to what I said, it is not about building only better meeting devices. It needs to tick from front to end. The service needs to be reliable, the experiences need to be fantastic, and we actually need to be able to give the tools to everyone to make those meetings and that meeting content relevant. But that will not only solve everything. The most important thing is that people need to start more meetings. If you truly want to make meetings more relevant, and Anton will come back to that in a moment as well, but link room systems were an incredible jump in Microsoft from a usage perspective. It is not like a VTC, no, because you actually schedule it in Outlook. And when you schedule the room, you have scheduled a meeting in the room, and you have scheduled the reservation for the meeting device. That type of technology, that type of integration, is something that made a huge difference in usage. If you look at the VTCs, yes, even Microsoft has VTCs. They're barely used in Microsoft. If you use a link room system, it is so natural that effectively every meeting that was scheduled with a link room system in there as an object, as a resource, it was used because it's one-touch join. And we don't stop there. We actually want to, inside Microsoft, not only in Outlook have this Skype meeting button, but in Office 365 there is a Meet Me Now or Meet Now button. We want to actually make it possible that when you need to collaborate, you actually just press that button and you can actually start a meeting with everyone who is, for example, collaborating on that document. We then want to make it possible that you do not only see, like we showing yesterday in document collaboration, who are the people that are talking to each other. You actually are able to physically talk to each other by just clicking one button, and you have all the people who are collaborating on that moment in a meeting. Those are the power. We will keep the questions till the end. So those are the types of things. The last part, and there is where Skype and Skype for Business comes into play. We want to make this possible to be not only joined by everyone like it is the case at this very moment, by having a link and then have a guest. We want to actually make it possible that the whole meeting experience does not only scale to businesses, but also scales to all the people that are out there that need meetings for other purposes. We truly want to have meetings be, and whether that's a formal meeting or an informal meeting, a little bit like what Hangouts did. It actually revolutionizes that how people think about meetings. It is not only something that is a meeting for work, but it's also a meeting for private, for personal, for your personal life. And that common experience across Skype and Skype for Business is something that is extremely powerful. We actually launched, and you will see sessions later in the week, a web SDK that allows you to build in a meeting, or actually not only a meeting, but a call button right into your website and start a call for your consumers back to your backend that is fully controlled. That is a meeting. Not many people realize that. Many people think it's a one-on-one conversation. No, the whole technology is based on meeting technology. And that ubiquity actually helps people engage, helps bring you closer to your customers, closer to your private life, and all those type of things. So as such, the Skype meeting, calling it a Skype meeting, and I heard some people who said, oh, yeah, man, this is a big problem because Skype meetings, that is associated with Skype, and that's not associated with trust, and so on. My customers don't want to use it anymore. But to actually make the word Skype meeting something that everyone clearly sees as a synonym, I cannot pronounce it, with the actual okay, hey, this is the trusted service that we know from Microsoft that spans not only the businesses but also spans the consumers, is actually a cornerstone of our strategy. So what does that actually then mean? What does it mean for the here and now? In that context, I do not want to only focus us on the one particular space that everyone thinks of when we're talking about meeting devices. We want to actually go across. We want to actually say there are meeting devices for each and every one of the spaces. And as such, in our strategy, we actually looked at it that where people are meeting is not necessarily confined to that meeting space. We defined a set of archetypes, the 5 archetypes that you have here on the screen, that allows you to actually say, okay, if I'm on the go, if I'm in a coffee shop, I would like to have the same type of meeting experience as what I have when I, for example, in my office, or when I am in a huddle space, or when I am in a traditional conference room, or when I'm in a hotel lobby, or what we call the vibe, where people pass in and out, or even when I'm in an auditorium setting like this. For each and every one of those, we actually have built a whole set of devices. A set of devices, for example, like that you can put in with echo cancellation your headset. The ability, and by the way, we and our partners, of course. Everyone in Microsoft carries around one of those speakerphones because it is very convenient to have good quality audio. It is, of course, now more and more pervasive that cameras and audio are built into laptops. And there was a major push of Windows behind that. So on the go, you're on there. You have your IP phones on your desk, and I do not know yet. My office has been taken away, but how many people do not just press the speakerphone button on that phone? Make sure that it works with our meeting software. Those are types of experiences that we actually want to take to every one of the spaces. In the huddle space, there are cameras. There are different Logitech cameras, like the one that is on here, that actually can follow people, that can do essentially the pen, tilt, and zoom. We, of course, have the service hub that you actually can plaster on every wall if you have the means to do that. And, of course, in the traditional meeting room, we are building with our partners Smart and Crestron and Polycom those room systems. And, of course, also there, the whiteboard and the Windows 10 apps and the conferencing experience of a service hub could be very inspirational. And not only that, I do not know how many of you actually know that the round table that Microsoft originally pioneered, has been significantly upgraded by Polycom with a 1080p camera. And it is delivering the 1080p video to every remote participant with the full panoramic view that the round table is so well known of. And in the Vibe, it is the ideal space, for example, for those service hubs. People have no notion of that you actually need to be a person that logs in. The service hub is built around a special edition of Windows that doesn't know who you are, but it actually allows you to refresh the content on any device at any point in time. So when Julia yesterday finished the meeting, or actually it was when there was a little glitch in the demo, it says resetting. All the meeting content was cleared from that particular device, and the next person that walks up to the device can start presenting and can actually pull in their content, and the moment that they leave, it actually will erase that type of content. And of course, you saw yesterday the broadcast meetings. The broadcast meetings on which there will be a specific session as well. Maybe it has taken place already, but it is an awesome experience to not only have a meeting among a small group, but we are using the same technology that was used for the Olympics. With Azure Media Services, we are able to stream it to as many participants as you can like. Because effectively what happens from the Link client, the Skype for Business client, because this is particular just for Skype for Business, you are actually able to produce the stream that is uploaded to Azure Media Services. And it can be consumed in any web browser, whether it's on your desktop or whether it's mobile. You can consume that by the thousands. Like I said, it's the same technology that was used for the Olympics. And of course, there we actually have the option that you can start integrating that with more professional camera equipment or audio equipment. Those types of things are actually fantastic in order to scale all the way from those people who are on the move to the ones that are in a setting like this or are even participating in a company meeting or something like that. And with that, I would like to hand off to my friend Anton.
Okay, so we have clicker handover, and I'm going to change gears a little bit. Albert spent a good time there tying together our meeting strategy to, if you saw the vision video in the keynote yesterday, you can see how meetings play an integral part in that. I'm going to spend time in this next section talking about our meeting room devices because I think, as you've seen and probably experienced yourselves, it's critical that you as employees, as partners, as customers, as individuals, however you work, you're productive wherever you are. And one of the highest value as well as highest cost spaces that people spend their time, sometimes being productive, sometimes not, but it's meeting rooms. I think everyone has horror stories maybe about the meeting that didn't go so well. And our goal really is to ensure that we unlock the value of that space because it is it's a high cost anyway if you look at the salaries that you pay for people who sit in meeting rooms, but also a high productivity space where people get together in one space at one time. Now, I'll spend time talking about those spatial archetypes, as Albert showed earlier, that are around meeting spaces, but talk about the devices that we have and the devices that we have coming to meet the needs of those spaces. At Enterprise Connect in March, could I just see a show of hands? How many of you were at Enterprise Connect in March? That's great. Zig Serafin did a keynote where he announced Skype room systems as the successor to or the enhancement of what we have known as link room systems, but he also talked about other devices that we have coming to that space. Now the question is, what is a Skype room system? How do you think about that as a space? And as Albert mentioned, we work with partners. We have a very tight relationship with partners. What is it that unifies all of those devices that our various partners sell, which have certain differentiated value to them? But underlying it all is a common, consistent Skype room systems experience. And that's really key. For those of you who have the Skype for Business deployment, users definitely want the familiarity of walking into a room and knowing that it just works. So a consistent experience is key. Albert talked about the rich relationship we have with our partners and how key that is, because we definitely feel that we cannot do this all on our own, and nor do we want to. Partners provide a great differentiated set of value that allows you as customers to choose based on your needs which solutions to buy for which spaces, and we think they do a great job with that and will continue to and can definitely add value beyond what we offer in the hardware space. You might be asking then about Surface Hub. What is that device doing? Because that device also certainly seems to be joining meetings. It has the Skype for Business experience. And we've really made an entrance into this space as Microsoft providing hardware to show what can be accomplished overall, not just in the meeting room, but in general productivity when you think about Windows, when you think about Office, when you think about Windows 10 universal apps. Surface Hub for certain spaces and for certain use cases is a great choice there. But it may not fit all spaces. So it's intended as a showcase. It's intended as a device of value in certain physical spaces, in certain cost centers, depending on what your budget is. And the broad range of Skype room systems meets the full needs of the entire ecosystem. So that's a way to think about Skype room systems overall. The key tenets that we had is every device that is part of Skype room systems has certain value. Meeting join is the key value driver for a lot of deployments. How many of us have sat in rooms and it's taken 10 to 12 minutes to start the meeting, get the video started, check the audio, get the content uploaded? We just think that that is a crazy waste of time, and we really believe that with Skype room systems it's essential that you can just walk in with one touch, start a meeting. Meetings are increasingly collaborative, so what does that mean in a meeting room? It means that you're not just sitting there watching video of a remote attendee in another room. In fact, what you're often doing is you're watching video and interacting with and sharing content with not only other rooms, but in more cases, many people who are remote and may even be on mobile. So the notion that you can have room-to-room conversations and be productive that way is a little limiting. In fact, you really have to optimize for scenarios where most of your attendees are remote. And then finally, this is an IT audience as well. Manageability is really key. Being able to manage a room system in much the same way as you would manage a user, as you would manage an Exchange deployment, is essential to be able to run an effective and lean IT management service. And we've heard from customers definitely that having to have a separate management infrastructure just for meeting rooms is a little bit of too much overhead for them. It's much like having a separate PBX infrastructure that doesn't integrate with your directory. It seems a rather a dated concept, so integrated manageability is key. So if I can see by show of hands, how many of you have used or installed a link room system? So that's a good amount of this room. How many of you have seen or are aware of it? So quite a bit more. For those who haven't, I'm quickly going to show you a video that we did around the launch in 2013 of Link Room Systems.
Link Room System provides an immersive meeting experience in a real room setting. With Link Room System, you can join a Link meeting with one touch and collaborate with remote participants in just seconds. And because it's Link, you can collaborate using familiar Link features, such as the whiteboard and desktop sharing. With high-definition video and touch-enabled displays, your Link meeting is truly a face-to-face experience. The console lets you manage most of the meeting and room features. The views and options vary depending on your Link Room System configuration. Tap a participant's name to open a menu that gives you options that include unmute, mute, and remove. The icons next to each participant's name show their meeting activities, such as video sharing, desktop sharing, or instant messaging. If you want to invite someone else to join the meeting, tap Invite More People and search for their name. Tap it to add it to the list, and then tap OK. Tap Display to choose a view for the room monitors. For example, you can show only the meeting participants or participants and content. The display setting applies only to the room monitors. It doesn't affect the on-screen view for remote Link meeting participants. To send an instant message to everyone, tap I am, tap the text input area, and then type your message. Everyone in the meeting room and online can see instant messages. An asterisk means a new message has been posted. The toolbar at the bottom lets you control devices and the whiteboard. When your meeting is over, just tap Leave Meeting. Your meeting won't actually end until the last participant leaves the meeting. You can take advantage of this feature to leave and rejoin the meeting as often as you'd like. To learn more, visit link.com.
Okay, great. So you can see even in 2013 that vision still holds true today. In fact, I had a phrase at the time while we were developing Link Room Systems, which was, if you can use Link, you can use a Link Room System. It doesn't quite sound the same as if you can use Skype for Business, you can use a Skype for Business room system, but the idea was to simply have an experience that users already know and have it in a conference room. And as you saw as an example there, that example was from our partner Smart, their device. You can see a very familiar and intuitive experience, and that was the value proposition of Link Room System, and still holds true today. So I've heard questions, and I'm sure a lot of you in the audience who have used it have given us feedback, which we really appreciate. It's been great. What have we heard since we've deployed and launched Link Room Systems? Well, one of the things that Albert touched on was higher usage of the meeting rooms. The existing video conferencing systems today are notoriously expensive, notoriously underutilized, and notoriously long-lived. That's a pretty bad combination. With Link Room Systems, we've actually found higher adoption of video, higher usage by remote attendees of video because of it, because they realize that they can have more of a say in what's going on in the meeting room if they share and receive. In Microsoft, it's pretty interesting. Our executives are quite famous for being very directed in their feedback, I should say. And I'm known as the room systems guy, so anytime an exec has a meeting he doesn't like, calls me up and says, my meeting didn't work, what happened there? I looked at one and I said, well, you actually didn't have that meeting in a Link Room system, so you had to do it yourself. And then he next said, well, why don't you put it in my room? And I said, you control the budget. You should be able to decide to deploy a Link Room system, which he did, but I don't think he thanked me for that advice. Anyway, the point being that higher usage, higher adoption, happier people, definitely. We've also seen that the majority of units sold are dual screens. It's interesting that customers tend to like that immersive experience. So when you think about price and value, those two definitely go hand in hand. And what we've seen is there is higher value in some of these dual screen systems that customers definitely perceive and are willing to deploy. Some key updates since we've launched in 2013, and thanks to many of you in this room who have provided feedback, some of it great, some of it around what we needed to do better, and we've paid a lot of attention to that for things like what topology you use, any reliability issues we may have seen. The point, though, is that we have regular updates for Link Room systems, now Skype Room systems, and that continues to be the case. You can almost think of the meeting room as a service in that sense. What you buy on day one is something that we can enhance over time with software update, and that is a key aspect of the manageability value proposition. We've also done things like optimizing for a lot of meeting rooms which have a heavy audio-visual usage, where customers have said, you know, I want a room PC that I can just show any content on. We don't want to have that interfere with the appliance-like nature of Link Room systems, because it's key to just be able to have meetings just work and start with one touch. So what we've done is the facility to deploy a room PC that connects via the content capture cable, and you can have an always-on dedicated machine for that. We've had some great feedback of some customers who said, yes, I'm having these Link or Skype for Business meetings, and it's great when remote attendees are Skype for Business users, but what about people on a phone? How do they dial in? How do we dial out to them? So we tweaked that design to make sure that calling somebody by phone number works well. Others have said, and this relates very much to the feedback the executive was giving me, is, well, why don't I see a join button on my meeting? And the reason there is, if you don't schedule it as an online meeting, you don't see a join button. Now, we've also looked at that and said it really shouldn't be the case that you have to think about scheduling. So there are some investments that we're making to make every meeting online. And that way, as a user, you just don't need to think about it. Your room is ready to join, regardless of if you had to form the intent at scheduling time to make it online. Also, manageability enhancements, things like System Center Operations Manager, our admin portal that we at Microsoft use to manage our global deployment of over 400 rooms at this point. And we manage that from admin portals and SCOM alerts that our administrators can use to assess the deployment and troubleshoot as necessary, or monitor how much usage they're getting without having to physically be in the room. So very valuable manageability aspect there. Things like antivirus, just released last week, in fact. And then room mailbox support for Office 365 dedicated users. We've seen quite a few customers who are on Office 365 dedicated. And then I'll talk about some additional screen and camera options, because we've also heard, can I have slightly cameras that can handle slightly larger rooms or with bigger depth of field, and then screens for larger rooms, smaller rooms, etc. So our partners have spent a lot of time. If you go and visit the booths of Smart, Crestron, or Polycom, you can see the range of devices that they're bringing to market. And then, of course, as we were developing Skype for Business Server 2015, we naturally make sure that Link Room systems continue to work with that, so that's also the case. So if you think about where we were when we launched Room systems in 2013, there were a set of devices for a certain set of spaces. If you look at the room size, we provided largely common functionality for a range of room sizes that I would call the small and medium conference room. We've heard from you all that you definitely want that same value in larger rooms and in smaller rooms at different price points. And this is what I talked about, a lot of the value of what room systems can deliver. So we've not only done that, as you can see, and I'll show you some pictures from our own deployment, is that the room systems experience that you have in those rooms, we are working with our partners to take to larger spaces like auditoriums, extra large conference rooms where maybe a display is not the best option from a cost perspective, and you really want an overhead projector that's larger, as well as smaller spaces where you may want something that is lower cost. What we're also introducing, and I'll show you, is the Polycom Roundtable 100, which is what do you do about all of those focus rooms that customers have? If you look at where Link Room systems are, they're very much in what I would call the video conferencing market segment. These are the traditional conference rooms that we spend a lot of our time in. They've got sometimes referred to as these bowling alley tables with anywhere between 8 and 16 chairs clustered around them, and then everyone looks at the front screen. There are about 2 million of those rooms worldwide. But there are about 50 million rooms in companies that people gather in, and these are focus rooms or huddle spaces. So the question is, what do you do about those? And I'll show you that in a bit with the Polycom Roundtable 100. And then with Surface Hub, as I mentioned, it is a device at a price point with certain screen sizes, so it has a narrower range of room sizes where it deploys, as well as a certain set of values above a Skype for Business meeting, where it has functionality where if you really are spending a lot of time at the board and you really are working with your office apps and your line of business apps, then that's a good option to look at as well. So you can see how Skype Room Systems is really the evolution of what started as Link Room Systems, brought to all the spaces where you have meetings. There's no reason why we shouldn't have an offering there that you can take advantage of. So here's an example in one of our rooms at Microsoft, actually, that I took last week before heading out here. You can see that that room is too large for a dual screen display, and people in that setup probably aren't going to be spending time in front of that screen. So what we do have is an overhead projector. You may not see it there, but there are ceiling microphones, and there is a front pan tilt zoom camera that can be used to see who's in the room and focus on who you choose to focus on. We've built that ourselves, and we're working with our partners to bring such options to market that they will be able to offer, and definitely talk to Smart, Crestron, and Polycom to understand their plans in this area. So that's one space. That's very much a control room type setting. We use that to manage things from our ship rooms for big releases like Office. Another space which is slightly larger, go back there quickly, slightly larger than a traditional conference room. Clicker. Definitely doesn't want to stay on that slide. So, okay, there it is. You'll notice what that has is also a larger room with a overhead projector, and in the center of table, it's got the Polycom CX5100, which is the round table, which provides that 360-degree panorama view and the 1080p high-definition active speaker video as well. So you can see with the same set of functionality, just by differentiating in hardware, you're able to address a much broader range of spaces and price points to enable you to have the flexibility to deploy where you want to. This is doing a bit of a double click. Surface Hub we talked about, and you can see it's optimized for at-the-screen collaboration, where you're walking between the two sides of the screen. There may be two of you at the screen. The camera's picking you up as you move. You're able to heavily interact with touch applications, and very valuable for that scenario. If you're sitting at the end of a table and aren't really getting up to walk at the front of the screen, maybe less interesting there. So think very much about which devices you want for which room spaces, and the Skype Room Systems value accrues to all of them. And now I'd like to turn to the Polycom Roundtable 100. If you were at Enterprise Connect, those of you who raised your hands, you saw Zig do a demo of that device, and I'm going to do it as well. As I was saying, the goal there is, what do you do for these other 50 million rooms where you're not going to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a video conferencing device? In many cases, end users are saying to us, we just want something we can set up there ourselves. Sorry for saying it to this audience, we can't really wait for IT. We just want to do it ourselves. How can we do something that's easy and reliable and works so that you guys don't actually get the calls to say, well, now how do I fix this thing? And that's the goal of the Roundtable 100. And powered by Office 365 and Skype for Business. It's an online device, but you can use it to join your meetings, which I'll show you now. So it doesn't matter whether you're an on-premise or an online user. You basically tell the Roundtable 100 what meeting to join. And what I'll show you now is I've got my mobile phone. This happens to be a Windows phone, but we'll have clients for Android and iOS. And I've logged in, and I can see my calendar for the day. So that's very nice. I've got some meetings here. It also shows me there, you can't see that I'm pointing to, but if you look at the top screen, it shows that I'm paired to a device called Chicago, which is this device over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to join this 11 o'clock meeting, touch to join, and it's telling me there is a puck here which provides audio that it tells me to press. Anytime I say puck, I worry about the Canadians charging me with a hockey stick, but that's what they call these things. I don't know if there's another term for it. So that's nice. We had a network issue there. Or when I held up the puck, what happened was it was saying we need to reconnect it. So that was on me for connecting the puck. We'll see how that works. Okay. So it's reconnected. Loose connection here. These are demos. And I'm going to join again. And it's going to ask me to press the puck, which I'm going to leave securely on the table. What it's connected to is a device like this. You may recognize it. It's an Intel NUC. And the point about the Roundtable 100 device is that we notice that devices are becoming very much commoditized because they are built on common hardware. The processors are increasing. Moore's law still holds true even these many decades later. So we're able to actually get great video quality and great video and audio processing on devices that are running commodity chipsets. And where we can really start to differentiate then is more on the experience as opposed to the device. So what I'm going to do here is the audio is coming through my speaker here. I can adjust the volume. And you'll notice there that the volume is decreasing as I'm doing that. Kavita and Chaim are actually joined to the meeting, and if I want to hear them, I'm going to turn up their volume now. But you notice that what I'm doing is on the mobile phone, I'm able to switch views. And Kavita is there, and she wants to talk about something that she's shared into the meeting. You can see she's shared some content. So, Kavita, let's give this a quick try as I increase your volume.
Yeah. I was thinking what restaurants we could go to later in the day. And I just did a quick Bing search and laid it out on a map. So since we don't have...
Okay.
Thinking we should go to...
So what I did was I said what I said I wasn't going to do, right? I said, I'm not going to lift the puck. And I lifted the puck. So we'll try this thing one more time, and then I'm going to see if I can follow my own advice. And I'm going to leave it here. And what Kavita was really doing was telling us where she was going to go and where we should look at going this evening. And you could see that the scenario was a little bit weird, or contrived, I should say. But the point is she's able to share content into the meeting. She is able to talk. We're able to see her video as well. I'm going to join again. I'm going to press the puck over there. Leave it alone. And we're able to have an interactive meeting. She's on Skype, the Skype for Business client. She doesn't have to think about what room she's talking to. She just interacts naturally. She uses her client naturally, whether it's on mobile or desktop. And the meeting just shows naturally what's going on without us having to think about it either. So I'm going to decrease volume there. And what I could show you is that because we have multiple people in the meeting, I could switch to the speaker view, or if I want to see both of them together, you can see Chaim and Kavita join to this meeting as well as me, and I can naturally control this meeting from my phone. So I talked about what do you do for these 50 million rooms that people have. In some cases, you want IT to manage those deployments. In a lot of cases, you want end users to be able to set them up themselves and just make sure they can't get themselves into trouble that way. That the meeting just works, that you have easy setup, and that you can naturally interact with whatever's going on in the meeting without having to think about it. So from the phone, I'm going to hang up the meeting. And there you saw very easily getting into a meeting and getting out of a meeting in one click. That's really the value proposition of Skype room systems, now brought to an unmanaged device. And that device didn't need to know whether I was an Office 365, dedicated, Office 365 multi-tenant, on-premise deployment. You simply plug that into the network, it reached our service, and I was able to pair to it with my phone. What I'm going to do now, which is always interesting, is to show you what setup looks like. And so if you imagine that I unboxed this device, just going to go back to the beginning here. If I unboxed this device and plugged it in, what I would do is I would see on the screen, what I am doing, because that's what happens, is it says name your device. Sorry, I have to go back to the beginning there. Let's go back. And it says go to aka.ms.rainier to download this app, which I already have installed. And what it then says is enter this name, my Rainier, and enter a PIN code that we've generated through our service, 5841, correct me if I'm wrong here, 2921, and hit pair. And from my mobile phone, I'm actually setting up a meeting room. And it says press the puck button just to make sure that you are physically in the room, which I did. It now says that I'm paired. And it says, well, let's get started. What do you want to call this device? So we're in Chicago. Are you guys Cubs fans or White Sox fans? White Sox. I heard White Sox. Cubs fans, see him outside. Okay, going to call that White Sox. Renaming the device. And it says test a meeting. And what it's now doing is it's doing a meet now and making sure that you can actually connect to the meeting in our service with your credentials. That test is in process. It's taking a while to use your meeting join URL, talk to the service, make sure that it works, and then everything's good. And as soon as I've done that, then says, well, show me your calendar, and you can see exactly the same as before. I've got the calendar on the screen, touch to join a meeting, confirm by pressing the puck button, and now, just as before, I'm joining the meeting. So I wasn't running a timer. I hope some of you were, but how long did that all take? So not very, and that's the proposition, is an end user can unbox this device, connect it up, without having to worry about anything, just join a meeting. And I'm going to hang up there. Great. So I hope that gave you a good tour of the Roundtable 100. Does that look like a device that you're interested in using in your companies? Quick show of hands. Great. So please do stop by the booth, take a look at it, get your hands on it, play around with it, look at some of the features that I showed you there. We think that for a lot of rooms that currently have just an audio conferencing phone in them or nothing at all, simply connect that device to a screen in the room and you can have powerful meetings with easy setup. So skipping past the demo because we did that. You know, I like these cheesy slogans. So where I said if you can use Link, you can use a Link room system. I think for the Roundtable 100, it's start a meeting from the comfort of your own phone without having IT, without requiring IT setup. Some screenshots for your archives if you download the presentation. This is what the pairing experience looked like. So I'll talk a little bit about under the hood, what you saw there. I held up, and now I can do this because we're done with the demo, the compute device that you have, a commodity NUC, you know the prices on these, a puck, I'm going to say puck, it'll probably disconnect now, and a camera that you connect to it. So for $1,000 and less, you can enable a meeting room just by connecting it to your HDMI screen. There's a cable that runs there to the display. But the key about that is it's a lockdown appliance. So it does one thing and one thing only, and you don't want to worry about users trying to change settings on it. It's locked down. They don't need to, and they can't. It runs the dedicated Skype for Business app. Part of the key of Skype room systems is it's the same underlying application running all the time. It's just Link or Skype for Business. We automatically update it. We can do that on a monthly basis as updates become available, as we find any issues that need fixes. Without you having to worry about it as an end user or as an IT administrator, we can keep that device up to date. It's cloud connected, so you saw, and I'll talk about this a little bit, that we can manage it if necessary from the cloud. We can also pair to it from the cloud. You don't have to think about having big on-premise infrastructures to set up and manage this device, which is one of the key values. The companion app that I showed you for setup and join, we have native apps for Windows Phone and Android, and we'll have for iOS as well, and it managed the device controls, as I hope you saw. So how that was happening was through what we call the Device Coordination Service. This isn't an official name, but we have to call it something. We basically rendezvous through the cloud. When you saw me pairing the phone to the device, we have a cloud service that does that securely pairs using a PIN, that ensures that it is the actual physical device that you bought, that you're pairing to, that it isn't a rogue device. Does a whole lot of management there that you as users and customers don't even need to think about. And then it sends the control messages from the phone app to the device for exactly what I showed you in the demo. So looking at how Meeting Join worked, you see that I have a phone and I have the Roundtable 100 there. What I did when I pressed join was I sent my meeting URL to the service, which then sent it to the device, and the device then joins its home MCU, wherever it is, the home meeting server, whether it's in the cloud or on-premise. Basically, that device is just saying, join my meeting, Anton's meeting, and what we're doing is we're endorsing it to be able to do that, because it's joining anonymously. You don't want to have to worry about provisioning that room account. You don't want to have to worry about the security settings for a room account if it's going into one of these smaller spaces that are less managed than the traditional conference rooms. So we do that endorsement and help the device join the meeting such that it can show the audio and the video and the content. So those were the 3 devices that we have and continue to build on and will have coming soon. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about roadmap before I get to Q&A. As I talked about earlier, there were updates for link room systems. We'll be updating, having more updates for things like multiple content sources on dual screens. Heard from a lot of customers, we've got the dual screen systems, we love them. Can we show content on both, even if we aren't in a meeting? So we'll work to make that happen. The broader range of meeting rooms, please do talk to our partners and understand their plans in this area. But the whole idea being that Skype room systems can scale to any meeting space where you have meetings. And you've seen with the link room systems technology that the experience is fundamentally the same. And then we will move to the Skype for Business branding at some point. We may do that in stages. But the key point to understand here, questions that I've heard asked, is what happens to link room systems moving forward? Well, you can see very clearly that it's part of the overall approach and part of the overall strategy, and they come forward, and we will change the name to reflect that. But when you look at a link room system today, understand that that is a Skype room system as well. We will be moving, and this is further out in time frame, but we have link room systems on its current operating system in Skype app. We have the Roundtable 100 on its, and then the Surface Hub on its. We will merge those into a common OS and application layer to have consistency across all 3 devices when they're joining meeting rooms, when they're joining meetings. That consistency is currently at the UI layer. We'll invest even further and deeper so that you can do things like mirrorcast sharing, as I did here from my phone to the screen, that when we build that for one device, it will just naturally work for all of them. And that'll be coming down the line. And as Zig announced at Enterprise Connect, all link room systems will be upgraded in the Windows 10 timeframe to the Windows 10 platform that I was talking about. Windows 10 timeframe doesn't mean exactly at launch, but it means along the timelines of when we roll out our Windows 10 solutions. So just by show of hands, how many of you are interested in video interoperability? Great question. I got a lot. Maybe I should have started there. But question that I do get a lot is, what do we do about video interoperability? I believe there's actually a session on Wednesday afternoon given by our MVP, Jeff Schertz from Polycom. Please do look that up if you're interested in further information. But I did want to show you very briefly what our approach is to video interoperability. Because the thing to understand in the context of Skype room systems is they are just Skype for Business. They are just Link. So they interoperate in exactly the same way as clients interoperate as well. What we have in place today is the Video Interoperability Program. Partners such as Polycom with their group series devices participate in this program. And we qualify those video conferencing systems according to a test spec that we have with Skype for Business. With Link 2013, now Skype for Business. Some of the older systems are qualified against Link 2010 and have upgrade packs that work with 2013, etc. But basically, those are partners that we work closely with who submit devices for our qualification, and they can then join our Skype for Business meetings. And a Skype room system also joins a Skype for Business meeting, so that's where interoperability happens. It's nothing that you have to do on the meeting room device itself. What we've launched in Skype for Business Server 2015 is the video interoperability server for on-premise deployments. That is a new role in 2015. And that takes advantage of the fact that a lot of the video conferencing systems sold in well over the last 5 years have a lot in common. They use the H.264 codec, which Link has supported since 2013, and they do signaling based on SIP largely. So instead of having to do transcoding and heavy lifting and heavy processing, we now have the video interoperability server, which does signaling transcoding between Cisco devices. At least we've tested against Cisco devices. But any video conferencing system that signals the same way as a Cisco device will work the same way. We've just only tested against Cisco because we've heard from all of you that that's the biggest need that you have, is what do I do about these old Cisco systems that I've bought and I'm still keeping as I move to Skype and want to move to Skype room systems. We can't leave those behind. So that's what the video interoperability server is focused at. Viz, video interoperability server, translates the signaling between the VTC and the Skype meeting, and it handles all the security and the firewall traversal for the VTC, because a lot of VTCs can't do that themselves. They can't actually egress the network. The scope at launch is dialing in, so you'll be able to dial in from your VTC using the phone dial-in numbers to the meeting, and we will have an update to Skype for Business Server 2015 where you will be able to do drag and drop the other way. The models tested are shown there, the various C lines and MX lines and EX lines and SX20 of Cisco. So the way Viz actually works is if you've deployed mediation server, it's actually think about that, but for video. What it is a back-to-back user agent that translates signaling between the video conferencing system and usually the gateway that's deployed with the video conferencing system, and then translates that on the other side to the Skype for Business audio-video MCU. It's a trusted server in the on-premise deployment, and it's a video SIP trunk to the video gateway. So that's very quick, high level on Viz. Happy to take further questions later, and I do refer you to that session if you're interested in understanding more. But with that, I think we do have a few minutes, so I'd like to call Albert back on stage for some Q&A as we just look there quickly at what we talked about in this 60 minutes or so. So any questions, please come to the microphone, and we'd be happy to answer. You got back there.
Interoperability server, when is that going to be ready for all 365?
Say that again, please.
Your interoperability server there, it's only for on-prem. When is that going to be ready for all 365?
Yeah. We're working on roadmaps for the cloud.
I hear that, but
yes.
we're
and I'll unfortunately
no roadmap time date. We're all kind of hanging
not
there.
Yet. Definitely
lifeless.
working on it, and we'll let you know as soon as we can. Marty. Actually, what you're joining is you're joining the link meeting. We've provided the. Did you hear the question that you wanted repeated? Repeat the question. So the question was: Is it the case that the Skype for Business user or room is joining the Cisco meeting? The video interoperability server is intended in the other direction. It's to enable the Cisco VTC to join a Skype for Business meeting. Cisco have their own solutions that can help you join Cisco meetings if you want. We've optimized for the scenario of deploying link meetings. It's not a client solution. It's a trusted server role. You don't have to update your clients to take advantage of it. Mike?
So Roundtable 100, you said it's Windows embedded. What
It's
Windows?
what?
So Roundtable 100 has embedded Windows in it. What
Yes.
version of Windows is that?
Happens to be Windows 8.1 embedded. As I mentioned, over time, we will be upgrading to the Skype Room Systems platform, but at launch will be Windows 8.1 embedded.
Thanks.
Go. Behind you. Okay.
On the Polycom 100s, Roundtable 100s, is it only on for Office or Office 365, or is it for on-prem as well?
You can be an on-premise or an online customer. You can join any of those meetings. But when you actually set it up, it's going through the cloud. You don't have to put that as part of your deployment to set it up. But the meetings you join are the user's meetings, and we will join whichever meeting a user has.
So if you don't have Office 365 in your environment, you can't
You can use the Roundtable 100. You don't need to have Office 365 in your environment.
But you wouldn't be able to
But
set it up.
yesterday, so for example, I got a question yesterday. hey, what if I don't have any ports that are open to the internet? This does rely on the internet.
You do need an open connection to the cloud for it to work. That is
And
true.
an account in Office 365 to set it up, correct?
Nope.
No.
You can have a fully on-prem meeting set up for your Link server or Skype for Business server, and it works.
As long as you have an open connection to the internet.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's go there, then here. Go ahead.
Are you going to ever give us the ability to disable the auto mic volume on the Skype for Business client so we can better integrate room systems with audio feeds from existing, audio infrastructure?
I'm sorry, you want to disable auto login?
The auto mic volume?
Auto mic volume. So if you
in the
join,
client?
if you've scheduled a meeting in a Skype room system and you walk into the room with a client that you're joining the meeting, is that the scenario?
No, I'm referring to a podium PC that has the Skype for Business client running on it with an audio input from the room. Is
Yes.
a very common use case for us at a public university.
Yes. So that's an auditorium solution. We have solutions like Vadio bridges that you can connect to the PC running Skype for Business. This is not without link room systems. And you will be able to join those meetings that way. The bridge can interface all of the audio from the room, whether it's from these microphones, wireless microphones, or handhelds in the room.
So, yeah, it's okay.
But in the client, you cannot switch it off.
Yeah, it's the client that's the problem.
Yep.
Well, please come by afterwards and we can go into that in more detail. Over there and then there.
So my understanding is the device would be left in the conference room. It's not something that users are carrying around as like a personal thing. Perhaps you could confirm that. But the question is...
That's not correct, by the way. So
Well, we'll
it's
just
not.
finish the
So,
question.
but the question also is physically securing these devices into a conference room, was any thought put into the hardware and how that would be done?
Yeah, tends to be what you do is you have Kensington keychains. That's what we use certainly. So you can do that. You can leave the device in the room. You can take it with you. But if you take it with you, then of course you're relying on yourself doing setup all the time. A common scenario is to leave it in the room and have some physical security of the device.
Yeah, but you essentially, if you were, for example, a consultant in a consulting company, it is tiny and you can just carry it around. And wherever you have a display, whether it's in your hotel room, whatever, as long as it has an HDMI cable, you just plug it in and it works.
Okay.
Yeah, question about content sharing. Will any of the systems allow two-way content sharing, whereas not only the host but also the participants remotely can edit a content in its native format? So, for example, I'm editing an Excel spreadsheet as a host. I want the participants to also be able to edit it and save it in the cloud or wherever. And as opposed to just annotate something in a JPEG or PDF format that you can't really touch later.
Yeah.
Do you have a roadmap for that?
Sure. We talked about that in the foundation session for Skype for Business. It was about cloud attachments and co-editing and co-authoring. We'll be doing quite a lot in that space for Skype for Business overall. When that happens, of course, the Skype room system just naturally participates in that session. I think we've talked a little bit about the roadmap there. We're starting with Word was the demo that was shown, where you saw users co-editing Word, and it automatically got loaded into the meeting for local and remote attendees. And you can imagine that we will extend to the rest of the Office family over time as well. Great. Back there and then there.
The Polycom 100, is that wired connection, wireless connection?
It's wired here. You want to be able to have a guaranteed and reliable network tap, so we've started with wired. We're looking at wireless in future, but if you want to have reliable audio, video with good bandwidth.
That's not fair. That's not fair. I'm the wireless engineer. It
That's
is
fine.
reliable. I can make it
I built
reliable.
wireless networking for Windows as well, and I've done demos in this room, so we definitely have some spectrum issues. But you're right, there is a case for saying that, can I make that a wireless device as well? Something that we will look at over time. We've started with wired.
The second question is the discovery on that. Is that some sort of a local discovery, or is that a registration process in the cloud for the mobile device?
So what started was you simply plug the device into your network. As long as that can reach the internet, it knows how to reach our cloud service. The phone app that you downloaded, you saw the download instructions there. As soon as you log in, you're logging into our service, and our service knows how to rendezvous the two.
And if you, I'll let him ask.
Still, I'm not clear about does the VIS provides content sharing between the two ends or not at this point, the VIS. Like
Sorry, is the question?
So the VIS is, I think you are referring to which meeting you're joining. So if you are in using our product, the Video Interop Server, which is a server role in Link. You essentially, in Skype for Business Server.
Okay.
At that very moment, you need to set up that server role, and at that very moment, every Cisco endpoint can join a Link meeting. If you actually say, okay, hey, I don't want that, I want to join the Cisco meeting, unfortunately, you're out of luck with our product. You need to go to Cisco, and you need to buy from them their Video Interop Server. They have an equivalent product, and then you would join with a Link client, according to their specs, their meeting. So it's either you choose to be in the Cisco ecosystem and you buy the product from Cisco, or you go to us and you get for free with the Skype server, you get the service.
Got it. Okay.
Right. So as Albert's saying, the goal of Video Interop Server, just to underscore that again, is intending to join Skype for Business meetings. That's the direction that it works. Do you have another question back there?
So last question on this is, if I have 1,000 of those endpoints, the Polycom 100s, how do you filter what one the user sees to connect to?
Filter what, sorry?
So if I have 1,000 of those in my organization and I want to connect, how do you limit that down to a smaller number so I can select those from my mobile device?
So we are looking at further enterprise management for it. At launch, what we focused on for the Roundtable 100 is an end user being able to buy and set up a device in their local area. We are looking at IT needs for those devices in future for the case where IT actually buys 1,000 of them, but that's something that's down the road a bit.
And it's primarily an unmanaged device, right? So let's be very, very clear about that. And you can imagine now, knowing our vision, that we actually have partners build a whole range of devices that it actually will have incarnations that will be managed.
Yeah. And please do follow up with our colleagues, Chaim and Kavita, after the meeting. They can talk to you all about the devices they work on it. Question over here.
That as well?
The device is the NUC.
Oh, it actually is just...
So it's a NUC that I've connected, an audio Plantronic speakerphone I've connected.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Great.
Right.
You can come up and take a look as well if you'd like.
We have run out of time. For those who are still here, fill out the eval, please. And the first 5 people here can collect a Link t-shirt. Skype for Business t-shirt.
Thank you.